So I really wanted to see the dynamics of this model, okay, these software process models that could actually help a software developer to achieve a quality software. So this is a little bit related to what AP Dr. Jamaya has said just now. So here is I'm going to focus on how the Malaysian see the agile methodology. So when we talk about agile, we have a lot of techniques, or we call variations, and some of the people call it as a software process models as well. We have Kanban, we have XP, we have Scrum, things like that, Crystal, and so on. Okay, so there would be a questions like, what if we do agile? What about waterfall? And some of them said waterfalls have a lot of rumors about software process models. So this is what I wanted to share today, and of course, in specific, I wanted to share the interesting parts of how Malaysian specific IT practitioners perceive the software methodology as specific on agile. Okay, so so if you see here, this is the basic software life cycle, okay, that we normally see. Okay, so we have these requirements, design, implementation, test, delivery, and support. And there's always the questions like asking whether it's is it different if we compare design and implementations. If we look at in the specific context that has been defined in the software development industries, those are two different things, where design is the logical representations of your systems, and implementations is where you execute your design. So basically a code. All right. So it has a different, as mentioned by AP Dr. Jamaya just now. There's a little bit, not a little bit. There are actually a big difference when it comes to software development 30 years ago and now. It's really different, and I will share this as well. Okay, so but before that, there are a few questions, right? So does the process model really important in software development? So can you say that you don't want to focus on design, hence you could run away from the design phase? Normally what we heard, like students, I don't want to, do documentations. I don't want to do design because it's a waste of time. So I just go for coding. Design is not about documentations, but it's more into the logical. Documentation is more into as a medium, right? So we wanted to see this. So can we really run away from design? Any process models that you choose, whether it is agile or non-agile, whether it is waterfall or V model or whatever, you can't run away from design. Before you do codes, there must be a design in your mind. So there must be a design. So you can't run away from the software life cycle. And people perceive the software life cycle in a different manner. So that's where it bonds. That's where the waterfall bonds, things like that, etc. And in fact, if we see waterfall, in fact, if we see the point number 3, one of the challenges is the overlaps. So there's also questions like, are we going to choose waterfall or are we going to choose V model? But did anyone realize that when you choose waterfall, you can apply incremental in each of the phases. When you apply incremental, you can apply evolutionary models. When you apply evolutionary models, you can apply prototype model. When you apply prototype model, you can apply rapid application development. And that's rapid application development is where the Agile Manifesto was born around 1990, if I'm not mistaken. So Agile methodologies we have consists of a few model, okay, which is XP, Kanban, and so on. So Kanban is more or less, if you see, it's influenced by the waterfall. So, okay, but the problem is Agile focus on the implementations that what people said so far, and those conventional methods. Let me divide it just into categories. Those waterfall is focusing on the design. Okay, which is yes and no. So we'll see this because these things are overlaps. So let's see in the next slides. So designs versus implementations. What about cost? Let us see the cost wise in old times and current. So if you see this model, okay, so we have effort versus time graph. So we have requirements all the way from left to right up to maintenance. Okay, so as I mentioned, whatever models that you use, whether agile, you can't run away from requirements. Of course, you have set your requirements, you have design in your mind, and then you do codings. And of course, you do testing. So if you see the purple line, So it shows that this is the old style of software development, and the new styles is focusing more into requirements and design. So the things that people maybe need to try to understand is that we used to have a very design-oriented model starting from 1970 for software development process, but yet the focus is on the implementations, which is on the coding. So not much focus on the design, which has caused a lot of money spent and wastage of money, as compared to current method, which is new trends, which we focus on the design because we wanted to see the logical representations. Because logically, um, we will spend a lot of money in implementations because we will use a lot of tools. So we are moving from this old to the new. So we are trying to make sure that we are implementing Agile, which is create more flexibilities, but yet focusing on the design. So that means we enhance the design, because when we talk about Agile, the overlap of XP and Scrum could happen, and where we use a story, where we use a sort of a cut visualization to represent features and systems. But when we use Agile, we have a tendency to not to focus on design, but rather on implementation. So we are trying to reduce the gap. So I guess that's the new what do we call it, propaganda, that we use Agile, but we wanted to focus on the design, right? So if you look at it on the research, a lot of people is having their own explanations about Agile, things like that, and they have their own opinions. It says, for example, large projects is for waterfall because it is very systematic. If you involve a lot of stakeholders, if you use Agile, which is only ad hoc and spontaneous, and if you involve 10 stakeholders, what is going to happen if a plan change is going to affect the whole stakeholders, unless you're just working within yourself or just with your partner, right? So that's kind of things that happens. Okay. So that's very important things. Ironically, most people prefer Agile method, which is more flexible to create the changes, yet the need to focus on design is still a demand, perhaps to reduce the gap. So Agile is so important. So let's see how it works in Malaysia context. So now come to the things that one of the most important things in my today's sharing. I'll try my best to fit it in within 50 minutes. So it's going to be on general. Okay, so some important literatures that I have selected. Okay, so promote early and frequent delivery of working software, close involvement of the user. Okay, replace the traditional or conventional methods, which is when we talk about conventional methods, then we think about this waterfall, things like that, etc. And then Malaysia IT company does not have a clear idea of that. So it's evergreen problems. So I believe it's an evergreen problem, so it still happens. Because people in the industries, this is my personal opinion, that they don't focus on the reasonings. So they wanted things to get to be done on by the due. And produce in a shorter time, and then not easy to use Agile, especially in a large scale project. As I mentioned earlier, that when we use Agile, it's a lot of less on documentations, because we focuses more on the implementations, but yet we wanted to focus on the design as well. So, but as I mentioned, when we implement Agile, so I guess there will be a chances for that developer to slightly to not to focus on the design, but rather on the implementations. Okay, as I mentioned, when you focus on implementations, there more cost will be spent. But if you focus on design, okay, less cost will be spent. Things like that. Because as I mentioned, in implementations, there are a lot of tools that is going to be deployed. Okay, so now it's time to see how IT practitioners look at Agile method in the context of Malaysia. So this is the things that I wanted to share today. So it is Malaysian-based companies, national and multinational. So identity is not disclosed, but it's a very popular companies, and it's sort of like quite a paperwork to get permissions from the companies to get perceptions, because I would think that the perceptions, their perceptions is very important, even though it is just the perceptions, but we need to know because I need to perhaps the results can help the ministries or other relevant agencies to do improvement. Sorry, to do improvement on agile related things. Okay, so today's I would only love to share the biographics that were deployed, which is gender and education. So it's very interesting to see. No, please don't get me wrong, not being discriminates, but just to see the differences that we have among or across all developers. So maybe you wanted to see if the female developer or the male developer has a different perceptions and different level of educations has a different perception, and also based on company size, based on paid up capital. Sorry for the typo, right? And this is taken by SSM, and also is a lot of quite a sort of paperwork because we wanted to define how big is the company. So one of the things that we could see in order to measure the size of the companies is the paid up capitals. All right. So in this context, okay. So it is interesting to see that how these gender educations affects the perceptions towards an agile, because it is very important to see if they understand agiles, and if agile is really good, so then it should be a software process models, a regular process model that is going to be deployed. Okay, so this is the respondents information. So as you can see here, it is very interesting. So if you see here, right? So, oh, sorry. Okay, just to check, can you see my slides, anyone? Okay, just let me know if you can't see, right? Okay, so we have a male and female. Okay, this is the real data. So we have 70.87%. Okay, of male working in the software development companies related to agile implementations, and we have female, which is 29.13%. So we can see that close to it's 29% and 71% if we round off the percentage. Okay, so one of the conclusions or assumptions that we could make is that there are more males in females. So I think it shouldn't be a problem, right? Because it is based on interest, okay, right? So maybe we can put more female. Maybe the government could think about how to put more females in the software industries, things like that, etc. Okay, and then educations initially was group PhD, things like that, etc. But because of the validity of the samples, so it has to be regroups. And this is what I've got. We have the first category, which is a staff or IT practitioners with a bachelor's degree or bachelor's plus professional sits. There are 75.59%. Okay, and master and above or master and above plus professional sits, there are 10.24%. And others is without bachelor's degree, without higher, without master's or PhD, perhaps something like simply a professional certificates, because if any one of you realize that one of the big companies, which is Hewlett Packard, has implementing looking for those without the degree levels, but with some sort of experience and professional sets to get into the companies. So that's why this has been taken as well. So I think coincidentally, we just have a beautiful percentage here. So as I mentioned to you, the main point of sharing to this is I would like to tell you how is their perceptions towards agile methodologies. Okay. Okay. First things, all right. So this is the analysis based on gender, right? And of course, it is being run by statistical methods, which is not our focus. But of course, we need that method to analyze the information. So there are three parameters, which is dependent parameters. First one is understand agile. So that means, do you understand agile? That will be the question, something like that. But that not really the questions, but that's the point of the question. So how easy to implement agile? Right? So is it easy to implement agile? What do you think? Things like that. Okay. So will end user accept agile based software? So do the IT practitioners think that software that has been developed using agile base is being accepted by the end user. So end user could be a public user as well. So this is the mean, all right? So in other words, it is basically a scoring, something like 100%, 68, over 100, things like that. Okay, so let's look at the male. We have 6.87 out of 10, means that um, this is their understanding of what is agile, right? So it's not even it's close to 7, but not 7. And female have a 6.56. So female has a lowest mark as compared to male. And how easy to implement? Male see that is it 6.93%. So we could make some sort of conclusions that male thinks that it is easy to implement agile. Okay, sorry, male thinks that it is a little bit difficult to implement agile as compared to female. Female thinks, on the other hand, okay, which is easy to implement agile. So we don't know what are the reasons for this. It could be maybe they have something like influence by other sort of issues or environment, things like that, etc. We don't know. Okay, so will end user accept agile-based software? So for male is 7.17 over 10, and for female is a 7.27 over 10. Okay, so we can see the differences in between the figures. But anyhow, since the regrouping was made and to make the sample valid, so we found that when we did analysis, the confidence interval or the alpha errors, okay, or the probability values is not falls in within 0.05, which is 95% confidence, or even 0.10, which is a 90% confidence, so what happened is it does not falls in between that. So this is the values, all right? 0.4, 0.3. So what we could say here is that actually, even though the figures is different, 6.87 and 6.56, but that differences does not really have the values, sort of inflation. So meaning to say that the male and the female have the same level of understanding and agile, and they have the same level of how easy to implement agile, and they have the same thinking that the user will accept the agile-based software. Okay, I repeat, even though the number is different, the figures is different, but based on the analysis, there is no significant difference against 0.05. Okay, so it means that they have the same, they are at the same bar. So I think it's a coincidence. It's a beautiful results for this. Okay, and let's look at educations, right? So this is the analysis how IT practitioners would think about understanding agile for IT practitioners with masters and with bachelors, right? Or with others qualifications. So we could see that understand agile with bachelors is 6.81. With masters, they have a very good understanding, which is 8.38. And with others, we have a 5.5. And how easy? IT practitioners with bachelors, we have 6.98. With masters, which is the highest, which is 8.3, and the others, which is the lowest, 6.33. And going to the last parameters, which is C, 7.16 over 10, and then for bachelor and plus professional search, and then 8 over 10, which is high for masters, and other 6.8. But based on the analysis, it says that only A and B is significant, but not for C. So that means the educations, levels of educations plays an important roles in making the IT practitioners understand agile. Okay, in having also in having thoughts that whether it is easy to implement agile, right? But will end user accept agile? This software is not significant, so they have the same levels. So we are not really sure about the reasons of this situation. So there could be something like because they have to think about other people, so they don't know, right? Things like that, etc. Right. So as I mentioned, we are not focusing on statistics, but we want to focus on the results of this. So whether how agile has been how agile is actually works in Malaysia. So based on that, okay, so this is the p-value, right? Okay, so all A, B is significant, but not for C, right? So we go to a conclusion and recommendations, and from that research, it found that Agile may seems to be the common techniques implemented in software development, and then more training pertaining to the deployment of Agile may be required to increase the quality of software development process, to reduce the gaps in implementations of the cost. So that means, as a result, it was found that some of, I mean, quite most of the IT practitioners has said that they don't even know whether they are implementing agile or non-agile techniques. So, and also, is it because of the circumstances then you choose the process models, or is it because of the process models then you try to suit the circumstances, right? As I mentioned, even if whatever software process models that we use, we can't run away from the basics life cycle, and people are tend to deploying the agile techniques when we develop software. Okay, and the third one, the Malaysian IT practitioners found that Agile is suitable for software development and helps significantly in producing quality software. Sorry for the typo, and they tend to work in Agile mode. Okay, so this has been it. And so this is my sharing for today. I tried to make it just to 15 minutes. It's a lot with more details, but I just tried to make it within 15 minutes, and I tried to make it as comprehensive as much as I could. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Daniel, for your interesting information sharing about Agile software process model.
Okay.
So now we are open for the floor question and answer session.
Hi.
Hi,
I have
yes, doctor.
Mr. Daniel. Actually, I have a
Yes,
question regarding
okay,
the survey.
okay,
So I would like to go back a bit on the panelist qualifications. Means the experts that you
okay,
actually do the surveys. So can you give a roughly average of the years of experience of them applying agile average? Real
okay.
agile,
The
not
average is okay. The average is a minimum is 2 years.
yes. Sorry, I cannot hear you.
Sorry, the minimum is 2 years. So average,
Average is 2 years applying
yeah.
agile in their
Yeah,
software
with
development.
development companies, yeah, they have a different level of experience. These are companies.
Mhm.
Some of them is having 5, 6, 3, 4. So
Mhm.
it's very hard to find, the companies that is very firm on what they did on software development.
Mm.
This is
I
my
see.
experience. This is my experience talking with people
Mhm.
from the industries. So it's very hard to find a sample, things like that as a trust.
Mhm. Okay, so by average 2 years lah.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any more questions?
Hi, Daniel. I have a question
Yes, Miss Sarah.
regarding about the agile methodology, right? Is that suitable for
Yes.
all kind of project, or it is meant for only a specific kind of project? Which is
Okay.
when we talk about agile, right? It is highly emphasized on we can say that rapid,
Implementation.
rapid implementation, right?
Yes. Okay. Thanks for the questions, Miss Sarah. Yes. Okay. Generally, okay, this is the answers. Generally, it is a question about how suitable it is. It can be used for all type of projects. Whether it's a large projects or whether it is a small projects. But a lot of literatures And in fact, logically, that Agile is not suitable for a big projects, because when we talk about Agile, it's about having a frequent communications and regular communications with the stakeholders. So, and also we don't have much documentations. We are focusing on the implementations. So if there are changes and that projects is a big projects involve a lot of expertise within different area of regions. So it's very hard to cater the changes. So the question is, most of the people, and even for me, I personally say that we have to decide first whether the project is big or not. Then only we can decide whether we can use Agile or not. And to decide whether big or not, some of them thinks that this project is big. Some of the companies think that this project is small. Some of the companies think that a project with 10 experts is big. Some of them think that with 10 experts is small. So at the end of the day, it's based on the intellectuality of the project manager and the software engineers and other stakeholders to define how big is the project. Thank you.
Thank you, Daniel.
Yeah.
So mainly it is not suitable when it is required comprehensive documentation, as well as that the project it is large, right?
Yes, correct. Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Daniel.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Sarah, for the question. Interesting question. Yeah. Anyone?
Is there any
Hello.
other questions?
Yeah, I have a question, and I have
Yes.
yes. Thank you, Dr. Daniel, for the presentation. This is related with the previous question. Is there any specific requirement skill that have to involve in the software teams? Because what the previous that what I read about the agile, that is just a need like a specific skill. Can you explain about that? Is that we need a specific skill if we involve with the agile model? Thank you.
Okay. I think okay. So yes, when it comes to agile, everything is rapid. When everything is rapid, and it focuses on implementations, which is the code. So you really need to ensure that you have really good programming skills for the implementation. Okay, and also not only that, but for agile, it involves a lot of soft skills. Okay, based on experiences, involve a lot of soft skills. So that means you have to communicate with a lot of stakeholders. Okay, so going back to your questions, let me summarize that yes, we need that skills, which is the implementation skills, which is the in specific the coding skills, and also we need the soft skills. Okay, thanks.
Okay, thank you so much.
Is that okay? Okay. Any questions? Maybe questions about something related to your students project or anything?
Yeah, one more final question, Daniel.
Yes.
So
Sure, Ms. Sarah.
regarding, okay, since you talk about that, okay, the final year project, right? So when it comes to the final year project, since, okay, our project over here, our students are conducting as an individual project, right? It is an
Yes.
independent work. So therefore,
Yeah.
when it comes to that agile, it is obviously involve teamwork, right? And self-organized team members, okay, they will split that, okay, the coding, right, the modules of that, okay, the systems and all that. But when come to the final year project, when okay, it is a type of individual work, do you think that it is suitable for them to use agile methodology?
Okay, good questions. Okay, so normally it's a one-man show project, and as per a lot of research is that, and even me myself personally says that there's a project that we classify as a one-man show project, which is a project that you don't involve your clients, but you are developing for yourself to solve your business issues or personal issues. So any kind of process models is fine. So as I mentioned, it's about whether is it large or big. So it is suitable, okay, to implement agile. Agile not necessarily that it involves a lot of teamwork, unless we focus on one of the variants of the agiles, which we call freestyle. And in that crystal, it is specifically specified that you have to be in a teamworks, and it is incremental. Okay, so to answer in general, okay, maybe in specific need more time. To answer in general, yes, we can apply Agile in that project as well. Okay. And one more thing that, yeah, the problem with the software process models is because we think that waterfall, for example, that waterfall and then we have incremental is two separate things, but actually it's overlap, right? And we have one of the model that is almost similar to waterfall, which is Kanban of an agile, which we focus on the risks, and also quite similar to Boeing spiral model, which focuses on the risks in the spiral execution. So the differences in between these models is only the what are their focus. For example, waterfall is the documentations sequence. Boeing spiral is to see the risks. Rapid application development is to see the prototype, things like that. Okay, try to make it short. Sorry, thanks.
Okay, thank you, Daniel. Thank you very much. Is there any more questions? Open for one more question. Okay, thanks again, Daniel.